Creation's Journey to Life, Day 29, The Invisible, Invincible Mind. Watch The Trap by Adam Curtis for context, as well as The Century of the Self. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that I have used the invisibility of the mind as a reason to give it the character of invincibility, because I can think and say anything within the mind without any direct measurable consequence. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to elevate the mind to a status of creator that represents invincibility as human nature unchangeable, so to be able to justify why my desires must be protected, considered, and pursued, no matter what the consequence universally, as long as my personal self-interest is fulfilled and the consequence has a status of invincibility as it is not affecting my life directly. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to define myself as the mind, as the inner thoughts and chatter, only visible to me, through which I plan who I am and what I do, as the life I am living, in spite of the evidence that this way of living as the mind is devastating life on earth and my fellow human beings. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to accept the training and influence of the minds of children with superheroes and games without realizing that in the mind, conversations as thoughts will form invisible to all but the specific child that will shape character and decision making, focused on self interest with an underlying sense of invincibility that will play life like a game to win, regardless of how that would cause consequence to others who are invisible to the immediate view of the decision and game being played. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to fail to see that each child is taught to play the game to fulfill the task of self-interest as a form of give and take developed where each allow another to also win, but only within the circle of friends and family, with anyone outside the circle defined as the enemy that must receive no mercy because they lost the game of life. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed the mind to be programmed by external factors like parents, education, television, consumerism, religion, mythologies, and games to such an extent that the personalities I form to participate in the world according to situations are formed in an invisible way to me, and that what I end up believing tends to be seen by me as invincible, as the real me, when in fact, if I dare to study where it was formed from, I would realize it is just a fake idea I have imprinted and automated into my body about who I am and what I do. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not investigate the real me as man, as flesh, to understand how I as flesh function, but instead I based me on the mind as knowledge, as what I know me to be, based on my conclusions made on experiences and feelings, where the real origin and context of these energies is in fact invisible to me, and due to its invisibility, I gave the mind superhero status, as if it is invincible, because I do not really know myself. I only know the knowledge I based my fake self on that is busy destroying all that defines life at a rapid pace. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to fashion myself as knowledge accumulated in the mind, as an invisible, invincible persona that lives in total disregard of life, as that which makes life possible as a physical world, allowing myself to even accept that because I cannot understand how I have created the self-interested invisible self, I am stuck with it as me and must create my world and reality based on it, while trying to manage it as it is me as irrationality that should only exist in fairy tales and comic books. I commit myself to make the invisible as me that I keep secret in many ways visible, to remove the irrationality of the invincibility of the mind I learned from fairy tales, comic books, and television. I commit myself to show that the mind is not a real creator, but only a program that through fuzzy logic do what it is programmed to do, create systems for it to be able to survive no matter what. I commit myself to show that all thoughts, visualizations, desires, dreams, and self-talk is in fact the programming of the false self that was created as the graven image that stand in front of life, pretending to be life, and in this destroys life on earth in every way, unable to stop unless an extensive process of dedication to life is walked through self-forgiveness for at least 7 to 14 years, the same amount of time it took a child to become completely possessed and controlled by the graven image. I commit myself to show that the graven image as self will, in backchat self-talk, present itself to you as the fake self, as a superhero that can do anything, when in fact this is only possible in the energy dimension of the mind, which is an illusory created reality that is not understood by man at the moment. I commit myself to show that anyone claiming to be transcended and claiming that they know the real self, but is still using the mind and energy and feelings, are in fact completely lost in self-interest, and that nothing they use as justification or experience in the mind is in fact real in any way. I commit myself to show that the game theory taught to the child through fairy tales, comic books, television, religion, education, family values, consumerism, and all systems that now exist in the world, in fact only shape the graven image of self-interest that ends with death, as it is not in fact real. I commit myself to show that the invisible mind as persona can be seen when the flesh is used as cross-reference to show how the graven image as self feeds on the flesh to get energy for its existence. I commit myself to show that all knowledge the graven image as self uses is in fact useless and not supporting life or love in any way. I commit myself to present a way that the real self as flesh may become visible again, so that the power given to invisibility as persona and God can come to an end, that life as the physical will be studied to understand what is really real.